I hate Vivek Ranadive with every fiber of my being.
For the win! Bogdanovich! The open shot. Look, it's the play.
Hi, Editing Max. Please don't put this in the video.
Are you? Goes Hapanga.
Hello and welcome back to the Eastman Sport Report. I am your host, Maxwell Eastman, joined once again by my co-host, Steven Eastman.
Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks, Max. This is your podcast, your father-son coach-player podcast.
About the Sacramento Kings and the San Francisco 49ers. Well, I guess just the Kings today.
This is a Kings-focused episode.
Actually, skip to this time frame, wherever I put the... whatever I put
it'll be over there.
It'll be somewhere. But we're actually going to talk about Sac State for a little bit because he used to go to Sac State.
Sac State alumni, class of 2000.
So I think it's exciting to see all the things that Sac State is doing with like trying to be a higher program, with bringing in all these really good recruits and also other things. But specifically, I want to talk about Mike Bibby and Shaquille O'Neal coming in. Like those are two really big names that are going to drive people in. Like imagine Shaq calling you out of high school and saying, "Hey, come play for my team." You go, "Yes, sir."
Yes, Shaq.
Yes, Shaq.
Yes, Shaq.
If Shaq told me to go play basketball somewhere because he liked me, I'd go almost anywhere. But but this is really good because the last time the Sac State Hornets made the NCAA tournament was in 1988, and that was at the D2 level. And they haven't been able to make it back at either the D2 level or at the D1 level. So I think this is really good for the Hornets to actually be a good program, because it's really exciting to see his alma mater and college that's close to me actually maybe being good.
Yeah, like Sac State, like first off, so some of the things they're doing, they're paying money to upgrade their football stadium.
Yes.
Like significant upgrades. Last time they did updates was a little bit after I graduated. It was in 2004. They upgraded it, and they updated the track, and they actually had like the U.S. Olympic track and field trials. Before they went to the Olympics, they'd had the trials in Sac State. And since then, I don't think they've done anything. They're also planning on upgrading the basketball facilities. They have rumors of around $50 million in NIL money.
That's a lot of money.
Like, I have no idea where they get all this money from, but like, good, I'm so happy. They're on the push. Sacramento State is trying to move from, I think I'll get this correctly.
Big Sky.
They're in the Big Sky right now.
Yes.
They're in, that's FBS, which is the Bowl Championship Series. No. They're in the Championship Series. Football Championship Series. They're trying to move to the FBS, which is the Football Bowl Championship Series, which is the upper level of Division I. So they're in the lower level Division I. They're trying to move it up, and they actually have plans. This will be their last year in the lower level, and next year they're going to the upper level.
If everything goes according to plan. They are trying to make a bid to move into the Pac-12, and if they don't move to the Pac-12, I think they should try to move into the Mountain West. At least.
I think right now they're just saying they're moving there as an independent, so they have to move out of the Big Sky. And so this could be their last year in the Big Sky. What I'm hearing, I could be wrong, but that's what I'm hearing in my limited research on that. So hey, I mean, if you think about it, one other thing I heard, Sacramento is a top 20 market in the U.S. We're the only top 20 market without a major college in any college sports.
Yes.
So I've so long wanted my alumni to actually be good. And maybe they are. And
one interesting story I want to talk about is Mikey Williams recently signed or confirmed to be going to Sac State now. And I think his story is so interesting because at one point, especially in his freshman and sophomore year, he was regarded as the #1 overall recruit for his graduating class in high school. He averaged 29.9 points and 6.7 rebounds per game his freshman year. That's really, really good for a freshman year. And he was getting all these sponsorships and like hanging out with big celebrities. And I think that just inflated his ego a lot, because then he started averaging less points. He averaged 23.8, which is still really good, but it's not less than what he had. He only had 3 rebounds per game. And eventually, he went from the number 1 overall recruit in his freshman year to the 49th, dropping a full star. He had to sign with Memphis. I don't think he played a single game at Memphis, if I'm correct, for basketball. And then he transferred to the UCF Knights, where he only averaged 5 points on 37% field goal shooting. I think he started looking at the money and getting dollar signs in his eyes, and he started focusing that instead of focusing on what got him the money of basketball. I hope that Mike Bibby and Shaquille O'Neal can kind of set him on the right path, because he's still a really, really good player. At 6'3", 193 pounds, birthplace San Diego. I think he is really, really good. He can be really good. He just has to mentally be there like he used to be.
Yeah, and hopefully with Mike Bibby and a little bit of Shaq in there can help get it to there. Mm-hmm. I was looking up some of the things I said about $50 million. It says the Sac State funding can slow up to $50 million in the coming years, especially with the football program's recent waiver. So they have a waiver going in to move up in classification as an independent is approved. Now, it's an independent is approved, and then they want the end goal is to get to the Pac-12, which is awesome. The Stallions just got lucky. Okay, so right now we're streaming live.
Watching the Stallions.
Watching our Stallions. So they just had the second half kickoff. They're up 13-2, or sorry, can I say this right here? Is it 12-3? 12-3 over the San Antonio Brahmas. You know, the great names of the UFL. Mm-hmm. And then the Stallions are receiving the second half kickoff, and they fumble on the kickoff. Now, they luckily recovered, but that's what I was, a little distracted. I saw the fumble. Okay.
Lock in.
The other
lock
thing,
in, come on.
Sac State.
Lock in.
Sac State here. On the football side, they signed, their head coach is new this year, Brennan Marion. He was formerly on Fresno State, and he runs the go-go offense.
I think go-go's so fun because we have 2 running backs in the backfield with the quarterback. I think that means that you sacrifice the tight end position to put them back there, but I think it's really fun and interesting.
And they also flipped the roster in Sac State. They have 50 new players coming into the transfer portal, so they're not going to be freshmen. These are experienced college players coming in and coming in with this 50 players coming in. One of them is the quarterback from Georgia. Now, I don't know if he was their starter coming, but they're getting a quarterback to come from Georgia to be their quarterback next year. So, we'll see how it's happening at Sac State. So go Shack State, as you also might, as Shaq would like to have it called. So there you go. Okay, Sacramento, because he was a former Kings owner.
And then we immediately started winning right after he sold his stocks, but...
Yeah, well, whatever.
I digress.
Okay, digress. Okay, anything else we want to talk about?
No,
our Stallions are 3-2. They're not doing as good as the past couple of years.
We are Birmingham Stallions fans. Mm-hmm. We already have talked about why that happens, but they're not doing as good. I don't know why, honestly.
Well,
as a person who doesn't pay attention that much to the UFL,
I watched last week's game, and they went for it was halftime. Right before halftime, they did a tried to kick a field goal to get the deficit down. Mm-hmm. And it was like a 63-yard kick or something like that, I forget. And their kicker is, what's his name? He has a nickname.
The thick kicker?
Thicker kicker?
Thicker kicker.
Thicker kicker or something like that. He's a big guy.
Yes.
But he kicks pretty good. He missed the 60-something-yard kick.
Oh, that,
it was short, and then they returned it. I forget who they were playing.
The Showboats? Memphis Showboats, I think?
Might have been. And they said, no, it was... somebody better than that, I think. I wasn't think it was the Showboats. It might have been the Showboats because it might have been the only game. Anyway, they ran all the way back for a touchdown, and so that put the Stallions back down by almost 17 points at halftime. They did come back and send the game to overtime, but they ended up losing in overtime, which I've never seen overtime before in the Stallions in a UFL game. That was interesting seeing Stallions in the UFL overtime rules.
We were holding them for a while in overtime, but we just kept getting flags, and apparently if you get 2 flags in overtime, you automatically let them proceed with it, which I think is an interesting rule, but also, why are you fouling? Why are you... Come on.
Anyway, so a little bit of problem with that. Okay, back to the major Sacramento Kings thing. Do you want to say anything? You want to say A's?
Welcome back to... No, we're not talking about the A's, Dad.
Okay, just check.
I don't care about baseball.
Okay.
You don't care about baseball either.
No, I don't.
Welcome back, people who clicked the link and are now here.
Okay,
King
stuff.
King stuff now. Oh my gosh.
So-
this is the worst season I think I've ever been fully conscious for.
What would you remember this season by, Max?
Vivek Ranadive trying to make stuff work. Okay. If this microphone wants to cooperate, that would be amazing. I think this season it would have been mediocre if we didn't do anything drastic. Because we at the point of, I think it was just near December-ish.
Yeah, middle December is when they fired Mike Brown.
Friday, December 27th, right after Christmas, we fire Mike Brown. Now, this is after like I think 7-game losing streak.
It was 5.
5-game losing streak.
It did get to 6 because they lost the next game. But then they went on like a 7-game win streak right afterwards.
And that was the point where like something has to change, and that was the fire Mike Brown scenario. Like, is it Mike Brown? Is it someone else? We didn't know what was happening at that point. And then Doug Christie starts doing well. He wins 7 in a row. I think we won 9 of our last 10 or something like that.
Yeah,
at one
he
point.
came in at like 10 out of 11 or something like that. He won.
And then he was just doing really good. And during that time, Fox was injured. So I think at this point, Vivek starts getting the idea that, do we really need De'Aaron Fox? Short answer, yes. Long answer, we traded him for some reason. That's not something we can go back and undo.
Well, but the funny thing was, I was hearing right before they got, they were thinking, hey, something needs to change in December on that 5-game losing streak. And it was teams that they should have blown out. Like it was teams that they should have won.
Like we
easily.
lost 122-95 against the Indiana Pacers.
I know.
They are pretty good, and they just made the second round of the playoffs. But you shouldn't be losing by nearly 40 points to them.
I know. Like you should be comparable to them talent-wise.
Yes,
talent-wise, you should be right up there with them. Anyway,
and then you lose on a 4-point play to the Detroit Pistons.
But the thing was, that was when they got rid of Mike Brown, De'Aaron Fox had said before then, Mike Brown's my only coach. I want a stable organization. If you get rid of Mike Brown, I want out. Well, they got rid of Mike Brown. And what did Fox say?
He wants out.
He wants out. Now, he didn't technically demand a trade, but his representatives, his agent, went to the Kings and said, okay, you guys have a year and a half left. We recommend you to trade him, and we would like to go to the Spurs.
Yes.
So it wasn't a demanded trade, but it was the next thing. Right
I think firing Mike Brown, it's set in stone for me. Okay, fast forward to the end of the year with Monte McNair mutually parting ways. They both knew that he wasn't gonna. They both knew that he was getting fired, and he went, "Okay, I'm just gonna go." So Monte McNair just leaves, and then Monte comes out to the media and says, "Yeah, I didn't do any of that. I didn't want to fire Mike Brown. I didn't want to trade De'Aaron Fox. I didn't even really want DeMar DeRozan.
He didn't want De'Aaron Fox, or he didn't want Zach LaVine.
He didn't want Zach LaVine. Yeah. He didn't want DeMar DeRozan that bad." Now, I think that signing DeMar DeRozan was a good idea because it brings more name recognition to the Kings, and it brought us more media attention and like bringing us just something so then players are interested in our team. But I don't know if he was the greatest fit with Fox. I think they could have worked if you didn't fire their head coach or trade their other star at the over halfway point of the season. I've said this to you, and I've said this to other people. I don't know if I said this on recording, but I also said this in the opening cold open, as you could say. But Vivek Ranadive, stay away from my team. I get that you're the owner and that you save this team, but do your job. You're not a GM. You don't have to. You don't force Monte McNair to do these things. You are a owner, not a general manager. You hired Monte to be a general manager, not to be your little puppet that you can do things with.
And I think he let Monte McNair do his things at the beginning of it.
I agree.
And then when Monte wasn't doing stuff, because Monte seemed to be very hesitant to do things. I don't know what it was, whether he couldn't get the deal he wanted or something, but he's always about being ready but patient or something like he is saying something to that effect. Ready but patient. And he, like basically after the original Beam team.
Yes.
And going into the next year, it's like they decided just to run it back, and you're like, no,
that's not. I understand. I understand you're the 3 seed, so it sort of makes sense. But you need to improve because this wasn't. Because we got bounced in the first round, and we need something else.
Yeah, you need to continually improve.
If we got DeMar DeRozan at that point, that would make a lot more sense, and not the year after.
Well, but DeMar DeRozan's not, I think DeMar DeRozan was the best Monty could do last year.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But you needed to be a little more aggressive to basically keep Fox. Like you every team that gets to the point where, and Mike Brown said this, it's easy for a team to go from bad to good. It's hard for a team to go from good to great. Mm-hmm. They had got to we're a good team. And it's hard to go to the great. Well, that's when you got to make those hard decisions on what are you going to do. And Monty couldn't get us from the good to great. Now we're in the Scott Perry era. I like Scott Perry from a basketball mind.
I agree. I like Scott Perry, but with what Monte has said and what Vivek Ranadive has showed, is he actually going to do anything? Well, is he going to be able to be a GM?
Yeah, when Monty was first the GM, he stepped out and let it stuff go because that was the thing.
But when the going gets tough, which it is going to, because we're the Sacramento Kings, nothing's ever easy for us.
Yeah,
is Vivek Ranadive going to come in and say that this needs to happen and this needs to happen?
Maybe I'm the optimist, but I hope he stays out of there. I hope he finally learns his lesson.
I hope he's going to stay.
But I thought he'd already done that.
I don't think he's going. I think for like the first year he might stay out of his way, out of Scott Perry's way. But I don't think Vivek's going to stay out of the way long. Anyway,
but I also think Scott Perry, he was here with the Kings for 3 months back under Vlade Divac.
Yes, and he was one of the main reasons why we drafted De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, so he was in that era when we drafted De'Aaron Fox. He actually helped us get recognition to sign Vince Carter and Zach Randolph and George Hill. Mm-hmm. Now, those were trying to get, because if you go back in that time frame, we had so many young players. They wanted to get a few veterans in to teach the young players still how to play. Maybe not win games, but the idea of you still have to teach them how to play, and you can't just throw the young guys out there. You need to teach them how to play, which I get the point. So they brought in, but he's the one that convinced these other, older veterans to come. So I'm very curious to see what Scott Perry is. He's very connected around the league. He's been around so many times. He was the one that signed Jalen Brunson with the Knicks. He's done some really good things in other areas. He was with the Detroit Pistons when they won a championship. Way back in the early 2000s.
If you're Vivek and you wanted to help fix the Kings brand and the name recognition around it after the hellhole that you had last season, hiring Scott Perry, who's a very well-respected GM, is the right way to do this. It
was funny. It was him and was it somebody else where I was even like Charles Barkley said, finally basketball is the major thing we're looking at. So it was that, and somebody else GM got hired, and they're like, oh, basketball minds are taking over. Scott Perry's a very well-respected basketball guy in the NBA. Now, can he fix the Kings is a totally different story because I think we're really messed up.
Can you fix the Kings? It's probably the hardest GM job you could have.
If you can fix the Kings and get us to, a Western Conference Finals, we should
put a name in the rafters.
I know, exactly. Why is Case Cook as our quarterback for the Stallions? Sorry.
Did he throw an interception?
No, but yeah, we have injured. The Stallions aren't as good because they have injured quarterbacks, and their run game isn't as good as they used to. Anyway, okay, but back to the Kings here. If you could make the Kings a good, there's a way to do it. I'd be really curious what Scott Perry would have done. It's if you had to come in and know you had to trade De'Aaron Fox, I would much rather have Scott Perry trading De'Aaron Fox because basically Ranadive let a kind of lame duck GM trade your best player. Mm-hmm. And so now Scott Perry is left with what he have. And the first thing that when they hired Scott Perry was he was on a podcast, I want to say about 2 years ago, talking about Zach LaVine, who you got, major player you got back for De'Aaron Fox. And he was very talking about how Zach LaVine is not a winner.
Yes.
He does basically empty stats. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very curious to see what he's going to do from that perspective. So they just recently, so they hired Scott Perry late last week. They announced Doug Christie as the head coach. when Scott Perry had his introductory press conference and before he introduced Doug Christie, he listed out the attributes he wanted in his coach, and it very much read like, here's the description of Doug Christie. So from that perspective, just like when John Lynch hinted at Miko Williams kind of being their pick, because reading the description of him for their first round pick, Scott Perry very much said, hey, this is what I'm looking for a coach. Oh, by the way, that's exactly what Doug Christie is.
I think if we could have, I wouldn't have hired Doug Christie because I think that hiring like a Mike Malone, although I don't think Mike Malone's ever going to try to come back to the Kings. The Grizzlies GM who just got fired, I can't remember his name right now, but I think
the Taylor Jenkins, the coach?
Yes.
Okay.
Or not GM, coach just got fired. So I think that he could be good for us because of what he made the Grizzlies into. I think that would be a good choice. But the person who cares the most about, I don't think there's another person out there who cares more about the Sacramento Kings and the city of Sacramento than Doug Christie does.
Oh, yes. Like 1,000%. His desire to get a winner here, probably more than a lot of the fans in Sacramento. So I know he will work as hard as he can to get this team to a winner. Now, can we get the players to make this happen is a totally different story.
Yes.
But he wants this to succeed so much.
Now, if I could, actually, no, while we're still on this topic, I want to say one thing about the De'Aaron Fox trade while we're still on this topic.
Okay.
Now, if we could just not trade De'Aaron Fox and say, let's not keep Mike Brown because that already happened. That's okay. That's already in the past. Let's go back to early February when the De'Aaron Fox trade is happening. February 9th is when he got, not 9th, 3rd is when he got traded. I think that's either right after a Timberwolves game or right before the game that we played against the Timberwolves.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But, actually, it was right before we played the Timberwolves, and we won that game. So But the main thing that I feel frustrated about trading De'Aaron Fox is that he is your star. He is the homegrown hero that has been through thick and thin and has led the Kings to the playoffs. He wanted to stay in Sacramento, but he also wanted to be a winner in Sacramento. And after you realize that he's not going to win any games if he stays in Sacramento, he's like, honestly, I don't see the point in staying here anymore, man. So he just told his agent, hey, get me out of here to someone that cares about me. And we didn't care about him, honestly. And that shows us by how we traded for Zach LaVine. We could have gotten, I think, a lot more for De'Aaron Fox.
I think we could have.
But we got Zach LaVine out of all players.
Yeah.
I don't, no offense to Zach LaVine, but he's not the same caliber player as a De'Aaron Fox, as a DeMontis Bonus. He's not going to be your...
Stat-wise, he might be.
Stat-wise...
But he's not.
Yes,
yeah.
I agree. Stat-wise, he looks good, but he's not lead... Like Scott Perry said, he doesn't lead to winning basketball, which we've seen. Mm-hmm. He can be good, but I think he needs to be your... if you want to keep Zach LaVine, he needs to be your third best player. And for how much money are we giving him?
40-something million.
40-something million? He can't be your third best player for $40 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on from that, looking into the Kings' future, there are two options for this season. It's either see how this season goes, and if we somehow make the playoffs, we need to do something about it. We need to change this team fundamentally. We need to get better. We need to get better players. We need to make a trade. We need to get some. We need to make a trade. We need to sign someone in free agency. It's like something that I talked about the Niners one, where can you please just sign somebody? It takes us so long to just sign anybody.
Well, I also think that's what Monty McNair would do.
Yes,
I think Scott Perry is going to be.
Scott Perry is going to be very different than Monty McNair.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I want the Kings to do is look at the trade market, and I think there are two players. Oh, one of them is not going to get traded to us, but I think that if we somehow can get him to us, I think it'd be really good. But another player is like a maybe on the trade market that a bunch of people have already talked about. So Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's the first player I'm going to talk about, who's the more stable pick. Mm-hmm. He got gentleman swept out of the first round by the Indiana Pacers. This is the, I think, third season in a row where the Bucks have lost in the first round. After winning their championship, they've lost 3 in a row getting kicked out of the first round. I think twice to the Pacers actually now, but it's crazy to me that a player of Giannis Antetokounmpo's caliber isn't getting the help that he needed. Dame got shoved in here, and we thought that this was going to be a championship contender every single year, which it was, but Dame couldn't stay healthy. And then after Dame, who's your next best player? Well, now it's Kyle Kuzma. It used to be Chris Middleton. It used to be Jrue Holiday, who are key pieces to their championship team, and they got traded away, and now you have a guy who puts up literally 0 stats in 28 minutes of a first playoff game. That's crazy. If I'm Giannis,
it's a postseason game, definitely not a playoff game.
Postseason game. If I'm Giannis, I'm pissed. I am.
Oh no! Sorry, you're talking about Kyle Kuzma.
Kuzma
in a playoff game. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking Kings.
No, Kyle Kuzma. Ugh. I have said this before when people are saying, "Oh, the Kings might get Kyle Kuzma. Keep him away from my team, please." This is an example why.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I'm Giannis, I'm pissed. I want to go somewhere where people care about me, like De'Aaron Fox would. So, if I'm the Kings and I would trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo, honestly, I would trade the house for him. I'd trade every single player that we can for him. And for this trade machine thing that I have, you can't really put first-round picks in. But if we can, I'd take 3 first-round picks at minimum for Giannis Antetokounmpo to trade for him. But the player that I would trade for him is Domantas Sabonis. Full stop. I don't think there's going to be a better player that we can trade for him. I don't think they're going to take anyone else besides him. I would trade Domantas Sabonis to the Bucks for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I'd say like 4 first-round picks, or maybe 3 first-round picks in 2 seconds. It
might be a 3 first and like a pick swap,
and just give them the house for him. It's not going to happen. If it could, I'll post this clip on Instagram, and you'll see my reaction later. But
if they could,
it would be amazing. I don't think they're not going to. I don't think they will. But if what people have talked about, Giannis seems to be one of the most likely stars to be moving on from his team. Now, as I know him, he is a very loyal guy. He might stay with the Bucks just because he's loyal to the city and to the franchise more than he's loyal to the GM and to what he is. But the other player that I think we should really try to go after, well, actually, we should just try to go after this position in general, but you need a guard. You traded away your best guard who worked perfectly well with...
Specifically a point guard?
Specifically a point guard.
Because we probably have about 5
shooting guards.
Yes, and no point guards.
Malik Monk, he's a great player. I love Malik Monk, but he can be really bad. And when he's really bad, what we used to do is go, oh, Malik's not playing well. Put in De'Aaron Fox. Now, who do you put in? Devin Carter? Keon Ellis? Terrence Davis?
Which both Keon Ellis and Devin Carter are listed as kind of point guards, but they're more like combo guards, which means you're not a great point guard.
Exactly.
You still have to have a true point guard.
Yes, so we need a true
point
guard. We need someone like that. So if I could trade for anyone, salary-wise, I would trade DeMar DeRozan because I don't think he's going to fit on this team if we want to keep rebuilding.
Okay.
And I would trade Trey Lyles, who's sort of just an expendable contract, who would go to this team.
Okay.
I know people are going to sound crazy. I know I'm going to sound crazy when I say this. I want Ja Morant. If we could, I would trade Ja Morant for Ja Morant so fast. Again, I think we'd have to send the house for him. I think we'd have to send at least like 2. I think he might be a little bit less than Giannis.
Yeah, he'd be less than Giannis.
I think he'd be like 2 first-round picks at least, but probably more, honestly. But Ja Morant, I think I'd trade DeMar DeRozan and Trey Lyles. I don't know what the Grizzlies are trying to do with their franchise right now. Honestly, after firing their head coach, and now they just got swept in the first round, so they might try to blow things up. They might try to rebuild around someone else like Jaren Jackson Jr., but I don't know what they're going to try to do. So I want to have Ja Morant. He does have 4 more years on his contract. So that could be interesting to play with. And then
because the Grizzlies were all over the place. Like they were.
The Grizzlies were really good, and then they fired their head coach, and they went straight down.
Well, I think they were headed down before then, but like they were kind of all over the standings this year. So I don't know where Memphis is going, especially with the new coach and stuff. So
if I could, I'd say I'd trade 2 first rounds and a second for Ja Morant along with DeMar DeRozan, Trey Lyles. Now, probably would take more, and probably have to get into like the 2030s picks to get him, but I think if we can trade for at least one of these players, or someone like them. Can we just trade for somebody?
Okay,
please.
So out of those two options, that was two options I was thinking of. The other ones that I've heard, let's just for the fun of it, would you like to trade for either Jaw, Trae Young, or Zion?
Not Zion. He's too injury prone and too. He's really good when he's on the court. He's rarely on the court though. I think Keegan Murray's played more games than he has.
Well, yeah, but if you're looking for the Kings' perspective, you need something like if you go back 25 years, when they traded for Chris Webber, you need somebody along those lines where he's kind of a disgruntled star, which Ja Morant would kind of fall into that. A Zion would fall into that. Even kind of a Trae Young, where they're kind of in the middle of their career. They've kind of had some good years and some not good years. And Chris Webber on the Wizards was not as good as people were expecting. And he needed to kind of rebuild. And so, rebuild his image type of thing. And he came to Sacramento. So I think that's the only way to salvage this team. But I think Scott Perry's going to have to look at, well, who do you keep? Are you looking at who can you get, or are you looking at who you can keep? Because I look at, Sabonis, Zach LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan. First off, those three are your best players, okay?
Yes.
They don't fit together. So you have we
already know that DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine don't fit together. The Bulls have tried that for 3 years.
I know. Yeah. So why did we try that again? I have no idea. I think that's a stupid thing. But whatever.
I think there's 3-ish players ish players that I would say to keep.
Yeah.
So Domantas Sabonis, if we don't trade for someone like a Giannis Antetokounmpo or someone else that can replace his role. If we don't have a replacement for Sabonis, I'd say keep him.
Okay.
I would also say keep Jonas Valanciunas because he's just a really good backup center.
Yeah.
I think he would be good.
And for contract-wise, he's actually not
yes,
too bad.
And if we got someone like Giannis, he'd be a really good starting center to go along with him.
Yeah.
He can be a starter.
If you need to trade Sabonis, you still have a starting center in Valanciunas.
He's very good. I keep Malik Monk. Malik Monk is a maybe.
Malik Monk is a total maybe right now because I like him as a player. I love his energy.
He can't be a starter though.
But you have to get better. And so if you have to trade good players to get better, he's one that's I'm sorry, he's on the trading block.
Okay, and then the other players that I would keep is a Keon Ellis because he's really good. He just makes the Kings way better whenever he plays.
Yep, okay.
And I'd keep Devin Carter just because he's a rookie or something.
I would not keep Devin Carter. I would try to trade him.
And then also maybe Mason Jones or something? Just someone out there because Mason Jones...
he's a two-way player. You can't trade him anyway.
You can't trade him anyway, but he was the G League Finals MVP, made G League second team.
Yeah.
But I think the Stockton Kings actually won a championship. Good job, Stockton Kings. Now can the regular Kings do that? Pretty please?
That'd be awesome.
Pretty please?
So the Kings are going to have to think about: are they going to keep which players are they going to keep?
Keegan Murray. Forgot about Keegan Murray.
Yeah, it's actually when are you going to say Keegan Murray? But when are you going to keep what's your core? And I wonder if Scott Perry's going to look at it that way, or is he more going to start shopping everybody and see what you can get? I wonder if he's just going to start okay, this is the pieces that I have, they don't fit, and I need to remake the team into what I do because if you're going to have Sabonis, the only way to make Sabonis be good is he has to be the focus of your offense.
And he has to have a guard with him to play around.
And you have to have good shooters around him, which Zach LaVine, I think Sabonis and LaVine could be good.
Yes.
DeRozan is too much of a ball stopper, so he doesn't work with Sabonis. So if you're trying to make the minimum amount of changes, it's trade DeRozan. And you need a point guard. Okay. But then do you need to also get rid of Malik Monk? But I like him from the energy perspective that he also brings off the court.
Yes.
So it's an interesting mix of they have good players, but they don't fit. And I'm curious to see what Scott Perry's going to do. Now, the other thing is I wouldn't be opposed to them blowing it up and starting over.
Yes, I would as well.
But I also don't think they're going to do that for a couple more years because of the contracts that they have between
Zach LaVine.
Well, yeah, Zach LaVine has after this year 2 more years. Sabonis has 3 more years left. Malik Monk has 3 more years after this year. So you have a lot of players that once you get off the Zach LaVine contract, then you could think about blowing it up if you wanted to. So I think you're going to have about 2 years
of trying to make stuff work.
Yeah. And if it doesn't, even you could say in the year and a half, if you trade Zach LaVine halfway through that year as an expiring contract, somebody might want him.
Yes.
But that's where I think you got about a year and a half where you're going to try to make this thing work. And can you go for the big swings? Or are you going more for a medium swing where, like, say, trade Sabonis, or not Sabonis, DeMar DeRozan for somebody like a Jabari Smith? Like, if you want to put somebody next to Sabonis, you need a 6'10", 6'11" guy that shoots and can make shoots and, longer defender. Well, if you put a starting lineup with Sabonis, Jabari Smith, and Keegan Murray, instantly got better. Could you trade DeMar DeRozan for Jabari Smith? That's one option that I thought.
I don't think the Rockets are going to trade for someone that old, though, because they are such a young team.
Well, I'd be curious to see if they win today's game in Game 7 against the Warriors.
Yes.
They probably would not. If they lose, they might
That's
want
an interesting question.
DeMar DeRozan because they need somebody at the end of the games to win.
And when this will be uploaded, that game will already be over. This will probably be uploaded like Monday morning-ish.
Yeah, so that'd be an interesting thing. Where would Houston want DeMar DeRozan because they didn't win the game? Now they have Fred VanVleet, who did pretty good the other game.
Yeah.
But like Jabari Smith, I think could be an interesting trade with DeMar DeRozan.
I
don't know.
I just think we need to do something.
Yeah, and I think Scott Perry definitely will.
We need to make a decision because I've lived through a lot of stagnance with Monte McNair and Vlade Divac as well, and we need to do something to shake up our team. That was what the Domantas Sabonis trade was, and where we did something, and that helped us out. And then we did the wrong kind of something where we traded De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
But doing that shows us that we need to do something else to continue with.
The other thing I would say about
this team,
the Kings, is if you look at any good team, you always have at least one player that's you drafted, one or two players that you drafted, and then you fit people around them. And that's where I thought when you had Fox and Murray were your drafted players, and you had Sabonis as a trade player, and you had other people come in, I thought we had something there. But now when you trade Fox as your best player, like if you look at every good team out there, the Thunder traded for Shea, but they drafted Chet Holmgren and they drafted almost the rest of the roster. So they're kind of the opposite. But like you have to have a draft, and you're like, so draft pick, and Keegan Murray's our only. I mean, technically Devin Carter is, but I don't know. Devin Carter's never going to be your best player.
Yeah, I know that.
He's never going to be your top 3 players.
I know that.
Keegan Murray could possibly be 1 year, but you're like, is not going to be a thing. So it's like, I think, you give this team a couple more years, and then unfortunately for us, for Kings fans, if you blow it up, that means you're 2 to 3, 4 years back in the lottery. And
speaking of the lottery, if the Kings somehow get the first overall pick, I will eat a raw egg in the next podcast.
Hey, if they get Cooper Flagg.
If we get Cooper Flagg somehow, I am eating a raw egg on video.
Okay, well, I would love to see that happen. Just for the fact that we get Cooper Flagg.
I swear on my life, I will do it.
Okay. There's a lot we talked about. I think we could have some more fun with what are the Kings going to do in the offseason here over time.
Yeah.
In future podcasts, but we've kind of talked enough about our Kings season review. Before we wrap up, would you like to hear about our bad predictions, NBA predictions?
Oh, I heard.
So we actually went back and listened to our old predictions at the beginning of the year and how bad we were. Max,
just like the NFL predictions at the beginning of the year. I think I should stop being an optimist.
Well, the other thing is it's fun from aspect of we put it out there, we record it, and it's out there. You can go back and rewatch it and see how bad we are.
I think we recorded this like 3 or 4 games into the season as well.
Yeah,
our predictions.
We should have got a hint from the first couple of games. But anyway, Max predicted 51 wins. I predicted 52. Max predicted them to be the 5th seed. I predicted it to be the 4th seed. Of course, we ended up with 40 wins.
In the 9th seed.
Now, I do have to say, the last 3 years, we've actually had 40 wins, which over those 16 years previous before that, I would have been happy with 40 wins. So in some ways, it's kind of mixed. You're like, yeah, we got 40 wins again.
But like...
Yeah, we had 46 and 48.
I don't want to be the Atlanta Hawks,
man. That's where we're trending. Okay, then we also went off and said which Kings player is going to make the All-Star game. We should have said none. We both thought Fox and maybe Sabonis. Double-double record. Will Sabonis get more double-doubles? He had 77 the year before. He finished with 61 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think? We also said clutch player of the year. Will DeRozan win clutch player of the year? Yeah, no, your team actually has to win more to probably do that. So Jalen Brunson won that award.
Okay. Drafted by Scott Perry, or traded,
or he was free agent signing by Scott Perry.
Gotten by Scott Perry.
Yes, let's just say
Acquired?
Acquired by Scott Perry? Yes.
Sure.
One other fun thing is, do you think Sabonis, so this is thinking, do you think Sabonis will make third team All-NBA?
What do you mean?
This year.
This year?
This year.
Next year?
This year.
Oh.
All-NBA has not been announced.
Nope. No way.
Okay.
No way is Domantas Sabonis making a third team or any NBA team this year. I don't think we're going to have any all defensive teams either, except for Keon Ellis if they watch game film. But he doesn't have enough recognition to do that, and we don't have enough wins to.
So the interesting thing is because the NBA has a rule where you have to play 65 regular season games, there's only 169 players eligible for NBA awards.
Okay.
So can Domantas Sabonis be eligible because of that? That's the only reason why I think he could, because I think there's some players that would be possibly.
No, they're going to put like Draymond Green in the third team All-NBA.
Yeah, anyway. So I think he has a chance, but I don't know if he's actually going to get there. Okay. That was a future prediction because I like to look at future things. Look back to our back ones. Hey, we both picked the number 1 seed correctly. High five.
It was the Thunder.
Okay, we both picked the Thunder.
Also, we only did West standings as well.
Okay, so Max picked the Nuggets for 2. I picked them 5. They ended up 4. Okay. Max picked the Mavericks for 3. I picked the Mavs for 2.
Hey, no one predicted that Luka was going to get traded. Literally no one. If you did, who are you?
Yeah. So they ended up 10th. We picked them 2 and 3. Max picked the Timberwolves at 4. I picked the Timberwolves at 3. They ended up at 6. Kings, he said 5. I said 4. They ended up 9th. Max said Suns at 6. I had Suns at 6.
They were 11.
11.
That is a combination of injuries and not playing well.
Yeah, that team's going to be... Will Kevin Durant get traded this offseason? Could you, in 10 seconds or left, would you want Kevin Durant?
Yes.
On the Kings. Okay. Number 7, Max said Clippers. I put the Clippers at 9. They ended up 5th, and they just lost in the first round. In the ballpark. Max put Pelicans at 8. I put Pelicans at 8.
Hey, the Pelicans had I think it was like a 2019 Niner season where everyone got injured, man.
Yeah, they had
everyone get injured.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay. Max picked the Rockets at 9. I put the Rockets at 10. They ended
finished
up
at 2.
2. It's another one that we
Again,
didn't
I don't think anyone predicted that.
Yeah, Max put the Grizzlies at 10.
Oh my gosh, I just realized the game's behind for the Rockets and the Thunder. The Thunder had 68 wins. The Rockets had 52. That's a 16-game difference for
1 to 2. That's like one of probably the biggest differences.
Dang.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
And then so I didn't pick the Grizzlies to make the top 10, and they ended up 8th. Anybody else?
What did you say? So we just said the Rockets.
10. The Rockets were 9.
Yeah. Okay.
And the Grizzlies were 10. You said Grizzlies 10. I said Rockets 10.
I think I had the closest out of all of us.
I don't know.
Did any of us say the Lakers?
I had the Lakers at 7. How would we judge? We didn't even talk about this before. How would you judge who did better? Would you have to say who? We could probably make up a point system by say, if you get 5 points for being correct with the actual number.
That's just the Thunder pick.
If you get 3 points by being in the right bracket, as in the bracket I'm talking about is
Playoff,
like 1 to 6
play-in.
versus play-in versus out.
Yes.
You get 3 points for that, 2 points for being the top 10 or not in the top 10, and I have to go back and figure that out. So I might take me a few minutes. I might not be able to do that, so we have to come back next week to see if who's the winner on that. But that's be our point thing. Anyway, I don't know if I can do that real quick.
I don't know. I think I did better than you personally, but
I really have no idea. If we come up with that thing, give me if you want to ramble for something for a few minutes, or do you think we're going to be?
I don't got anything, man. I think the Kings jerseys are really cool, like the jersey design. If we got the people who do the graphic design and other things for the Kings and got that to translate to how the Kings actually play basketball, I think that we would be one of the best teams in the league because I think our color scheme is really cool. I think am I stalling long enough?
Keep going.
Okay. I think our color scheme is really good with the purple and not actually using the gold for a contrasting color is a really smart choice because then again you don't look like the Lakers, but they don't really use the purple as a primary color. It's more of an accent color for them. That's also one of the reasons why I don't really like the Kings gold jerseys because it just looks like a Lakers jersey. But I don't think they've ever really had a gold jersey. They've had more of gold tinted yellow, but never just a straight gold foil jersey like the Kings had in like their 2003-ish season. So are you good?
We're getting there.
Okay.
What do you think of the Niners getting? The
Niners.
Nike
I think Nike is going to try to do a sort of a city edition jersey with the NFL now, and the first few teams that they're trying this out with is the NFC West and the AFC West teams. So that includes the Niners, which obviously we really like. I think it's going to be interesting. If you look on the Niners social media, they have changed their profile picture to a sort of or red that's sort of slightly orangish tinted and like a instead of white as just their SF logo, it's sort of cream colored. I think that's a hint to what their jersey design might look like. I think they could take some inspiration from like maybe the San Francisco Giants in some sort of way, or maybe just like the Bay Bridge in general, or like the general community of San Francisco. So I think that's an interesting way to think about this. Are you good?
Yep, I'm good.
Woo!
Okay, so if you go down the things of saying 5 points for exact, which we both got 1. 3 points for being in the right bracket, as in you're in the playoffs 1 to 6, or you're in the play-in tournament.
Yes.
You got 3 teams in the right bracket area. I only had 2.
Nice.
Okay.
Again, I am better.
Yeah. So overall, you had 18 points. I had 16. So good job, Max. Max is
Told you so.
Max was the winner.
I'm just better at this. I think you may have gotten more NFL stuff right.
Okay.
I think I said the Bengals were going to make the Super Bowl last year, but
yes. Okay, so congratulations, Max. You were better at picking than I was. So good job, Max.
Thank you.
We'll give you a Kings Defensive Player of the Crown.
The D-Pod crown?
Yeah, you get a
chain?
Yeah, get a chain for next episode you can wear.
Okay.
It? Well, thank you everybody for our Kings season review. We're kind of we're not sure where this Kings next season is going,
or what our future in general looks like.
Yeah, I mean, we did wrap up our 40th season in Sacramento, so yay for the 40th season in Sacramento. We got 40 wins,
and it's probably our worst season ever.
We got 40 wins in the 40th season in Sacramento. I like that.
We doomed the future, Dad.
Okay, well that's true too. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for joining this episode of the Isthmus Sport Report. Tune in next time.
We'll see you next. Wait. I did that wrong. Just turn it off.